This is me, in 2014, about to complete my 7th half marathon and finally crack that elusive 2-hour mark. I was arguably in the best shape of my life and was about to start training for my first ever marathon. This is me, a month ago, having photos and measurements done with my personal trainer because I'm in arguably the worst shape of my life, and it's time for that to change. So, what happened in those 10 years? How did I go from this to this? Well, that is a long story, which I will try and keep relatively brief. Basically, that half marathon, which was at the Christchurch Marathon in June of 2014, was pretty much the last time I ever ran. I finished the race, super happy. The plan was to start marathon training. I wanted to run the marathon at the Queenstown Marathon later on that year. I think it's in November. But yeah, I finished. I went to go and get in my car, and as I got in, I had this massive pain in my hip. Yeah, I climbed into my car and my hip was just like, oh my God. So I got out and I walked around for a bit, and it wouldn't go away this time. Normally, like if I'm sitting or I'm squatting or kneeling and I was getting that kind of feeling, if I stood up and walked for a bit, it would go away, but it wasn't doing it this time. So I was about to call my husband and say, come and get me because I can't drive home. But after a couple of minutes, it went away. I gingerly slid back into my car and it felt fine. It was a little bit achy on the way home. Got home, had some lunch, chilled out for a bit, maybe had a nap, I don't know. And it felt fine. No pain, no thing. I went and did a hot yoga class that afternoon. In hindsight, possibly not the smartest thing to do, but there you go. A couple of days later, I went for a recovery run. I use the term loosely because in hindsight, I had no idea what a recovery run was, and that most definitely was not it. And then that night, I woke up at 2 o'clock in the morning, and my hip was just aching. So it wouldn't go away. It didn't matter what I did. If I was sitting at work the next day, it was just aching. If I stood up, it kept aching. So I went through a physio. It kind of got a little bit better in that it would stop that constant ache, but I couldn't run and I couldn't even walk for more than 5 minutes at a time before it would start to ache. So the physio was kind of like, So I went through a different physio, and she was like, I think you have this thing called a hip impingement. So I got a referral to a sports doctor who sent me for an MRI, and that confirmed, yes, I had a hip impingement, but I also had a labral tear. So the labrum is the ring of cartilage that sits around like ball and socket joints. You've got one in your hip and one in your shoulder. So the hip impingement had been causing the bones to kind of rub and torn a piece of the cartilage off, and it was just it was still attached, but it was a bit floaty. So had surgery. After about 6 months, I had clearance to start running again, and I followed the surgeon's return to running program, but I couldn't do it. I kept getting pain. I was also working with a personal trainer who specialises in rehab, but I couldn't do it. Every time I'd get 2 or 3 weeks in and I'd get pain. Went back to the surgeon, had another MRI. He said, look, everything's fine. The surgery is still good. there's nothing wrong with you. But he sent me, I had an ultrasound guided cortisone injection into the hip. Didn't help. So yeah, I pretty much gave up. All I wanted to do was run, and I couldn't do it. So I think for me, like a lot of runners, running was my stress relief. I'd go for a run and I'd work out, I'd have imaginary conversations in my head. I'd say all the things I wish I'd said to my boss at work that day. And so when I couldn't run, I guess I ate my stress instead. And combined with not exercising, I've gained. So at my lowest, I was 58 kilos when I ran that half marathon. And at my highest, I got to about 102. So that's 44 kilos. Yeah. So that's a lot. So, I've, throughout that whole time, ever since my surgery, I've pretty much worked with a personal trainer the whole time. But yeah, and every time we thought we got to a point where I could run, a couple of weeks in and I'd just be in pain again. So as I said, I gave up, but so about a year ago, I got a new personal trainer, and she's been awesome actually. So working with her, my osteopath, physiotherapist for the last year, really stripping it back, going back to basics, focusing on my glutes and my hip flexors and opening up space in my hip as well as doing the strengthening, has made the world of difference. I've now been running, I started in December, and then Lucy and I had a wee accident in January, end of January, early February, and I hurt my knee. So I had 6 weeks off. But I've been back at it for 6 weeks, and my hip has not been a problem. I've actually been recording this vlog for a month now. So I have been back running for 6 weeks. And I'm up to 5 minutes at a time and no problems. It's amazing. It's life-changing, I suppose, for me. So I guess that brings me on to why this vlog. Why am I recording all this and talking to a camera even though it makes me feel stupid? And basically there's 2 reasons. One is accountability. I still, the reality is I still have 30 to 35 kilos to lose. And, when you're carrying that much excess weight, life's hard. I'm tired, especially also because perimenopause, so I'm tired, and coming into winter especially, sometimes I would much rather just sit on the couch with my blanket, hot chocolate and some biscuits. But this will hopefully, and it's working so far, keep me going, get me out to the gym, get me out for a run. The thing, I love running, and I very rarely miss a run. I occasionally miss a gym session, but for me, being able to run again is just so amazing and such a privilege that I don't really want to miss it. So that's not so much of a problem. So yeah, accountability, but also since I've come to the realization that I can run again, I have been binge watching running content on YouTube, on Instagram, just everywhere. And what I found is there's not a lot of content that I can relate to. Yes, there are weight loss, people who have documented their weight loss journey while running, but a lot of them are they're at the end of that now. Or they didn't document it from the beginning. They said, look, I've done this, but they weren't really vlogging while they were doing it. And the other thing is, everyone seems to want to run a marathon. And trust me, I do not want to run a marathon. I know I said at the beginning that the plan was to train for a marathon, but it wasn't really because I wanted to run a marathon. It was just, I'd done 7 half marathons already. Yeah, a lot of my running friends were going to do Queenstown. And so it just kind of was like, marathon just seemed like the next challenge to do. And at this point in my life, I feel like if I try and run a marathon now, I will break myself. So I have no desire to run a marathon or even a half marathon. I really like that sort of 10k distance. So at the moment, that's my goal. Step 1, get back to running 5k. Step 2, run 5k regularly for a little while. Step 3, get back to running 10k. After that, we'll see. There's a couple of events. I'm not going to call them races because I just do it for fun. So there's a couple of events that I would like to go and do as sort of destination events that are longer than 10k. One of them is the St. Clair Half Marathon, which I've done twice, and it's beautiful, but I always wanted to go back and enjoy it. They have all of these local produce stands, like there's gelato and chocolate and basically things that you can stop at and do. They have bands. One year there was a bongo player. One year there was a Scottish pipe band. So I've always wanted to just go back and do it for fun. Run, walk, stop and enjoy all of the things that they put on. So that's one, but not to sort of run it and try and set a PB or anything like that. Hang on, Lucy's doing what dogs do. Okay, that was a timely interruption actually, because I'm pretty sure I was rambling. I tend to do that. I start talking and I lose track of what I've said and what I plan to say. So, to summarize and put it relatively succinctly, why am I doing this? 1, accountability. Keep me on track. Document what I'm doing. 2, even though I know that it's probably only my dad that is going to be watching this content on a regular basis, if there is even one person out there who's like me that is looking for validation, I suppose, you think, if you're out there and you think, I can't do this, like, I'd love to run, but I'm too old, I'm too slow, I'm too fat. If that person manages to stumble across my content and can go, actually, if she can do it, I can do it. Because as I said, the people out there that I'm seeing now, they're a lot further through their journey. They're younger. Everybody has different challenges, and I still enjoy their content, and I still watch it. But it doesn't make me think, well, if they can do it, then so can I. So as I said, if there's one person out there who is middle-aged, extremely overweight, going through menopause, then that's me. Just your average middle-aged woman trying to lose weight and have some fun with running, getting back to running. Also, this is Lucy. Hey, Mo. We walk twice a day on top of my gym and running. So she will be making some appearances. Won't you, Mo? Good girl. I'll